Okay, hopefully it says. Okay, hey, Miss Vaughn. So, for exceptional children, I went to Valonia Elementary for kindergarten. I also went to the primary. Then I went to Warren Dupree, the Bald Knob Elementary Schools, and then the Bald Knob Middle School, and finally ended with Sunshine School for my inclusive site. So, for my kindergarten observation, I did my 1 hour observation with Miss Davidson, and the glow that I would have to say was I really liked how her classroom was really uniform. The students for kindergartners were really uniform. They weren't running around, they weren't jumping, and they just listened to her. And then whenever they got into their groups on the carpet, they all stayed seated. They were all nice. So I was like, wow, she has really good control over her classroom. The grow that I would have to say for that would be, I felt like she picked on her students. I know that we're not supposed to critique, but she did give them a brain break, which I really liked. And the students got up and danced, and I did notice she told one of the girls, she said, stop doing what you're doing. And when I looked over, the girl was doing the exact same movement as all the other kids. And I just found that odd that she was telling that girl to not do it, but all the other kids were doing it. And then another thing is she had 2 desks. When you first walked in, there was one desk kind of over here, and the desk was faced away from the class, and it was facing a wall. And then there was another desk by the window, and it was facing, because she had a lot of cabinets, and it was facing the cabinet. And she told those students that sat there to go back to their seats, and I thought that was kind of odd that they were facing the wall. They were away from the class, and their backs were to the class. So even if she was instructing and the students, the students were in their seats and she was standing up and she was walking around, the student would still have to turn around to look at her. And I thought that was kind of odd too. I would have changed that seating arrangement just a little bit. So for first grade, I went to Miss Reed, and I observed her at Valonia Primary. I tried to go to Valonia Elementary, but they didn't have anybody, so I went to the primary, same school district. And Miss Reed was by far the best observation I've done throughout this whole time. It was the best observation. She was so nice. She just was so informative, and she invited me back even after I was done with this class. She said, just come on back. We'd love to have you. Then when I walked in, there was an aide, and there was a special resource teacher. And so I thought that was kind of cool that she had an aide in there as well, and she had a special resource to help focus on the students in that class, and she could focus her attention on the reading groups and participate in the students when they're learning their vowels and they're going over the rhyming words and what sounds alike and what words have the same. So I really like that. So I guess my glow for her would be that she was very nice, and she was very, I don't know how to say this word, into it with her students, I guess you could say. She was very aware of them and what they were doing. And there was a couple times when some of the students would just get up. They would just get up and they would just walk around the room. And for me, if I was in the classroom, that would kind of be a little distracting to me because my attention span is ridiculous. But for those students, and I watched her, and she just looked at the students and she went right back to her work. And I thought this was kind of cool in a way, because if those students were having concentration problems, getting up and walking around the room or going and doing this, go do this, can kind of get all the jitters out, and they can get back to their seat and they can work on it. So I like that she allowed the students to do that, and they could just walk around, go quietly to their seats, and that's how they learn, because some students do learn like that. So I really liked how she did that. My grow, oh goodness, I don't even know if I would have a grow. I do not have a grow for Miss Reed. She was very nice, and she was very helpful. I did get to see her when she was with her, the 4 students in her class that I mentioned in my paper. They were special resource, and I did notice she did tell me that majority of the resource that was going on in the classroom was dyslexia. And some kids, they weren't diagnosed with dyslexia, but they had the markers for it. And one girl sat on the computer for 40 minutes a week, and she did her programs. And the other students, varying on how bad it was, they spent more time with the special resource teacher, and they spent more time completing workbooks and reading books that were on a lower level. So I really liked how she was really, really helpful with those students. So I don't have a grow for her. My next class is 2nd grade with Miss Reeves, and I observed her at Bologna Elementary School. She was nice. One thing that I did notice was how young she was, and that kind of was like, oh my goodness. I think she'd been teaching for just 5 years. I think she just started her 5th year this year, and she was really young. I think she was 27, 28 years old, and I said, oh my goodness, that's crazy. I really liked how with her, she had the students in groups and they could help each other. And when she went over the math, which was the subject that I observed for that hour was the math portion, and I myself am horrible at math. And she included base 10 blocks on each table so the students could physically feel the blocks, they could count the blocks, they could maneuver the blocks however way the problem that they needed to solve was. And then before she set them off to do their work, she said, okay, you guys, well, what did we do yesterday? Can anyone name off the math, the ways that we could do to solve this problem, the ways of subtraction? And so they went over that, and I liked how she included stuff from yesterday, so she's reviewing, and I really liked that. I think that when I was in school was really helpful, so I really liked that. The grow that I would have for Miss Reed, oh my goodness, I don't really know if I have a grow for her either. I don't have a grow for her. She did everything. I wouldn't change anything how she taught. I wouldn't change it because I think that she did an amazing job of covering all the bases. She did sit with students one-on-one, and she did go over one-on-one with the students who needed a little more help. So I wouldn't have a grow for Miss Reeves. Okay, then I have 3rd grade for Miss Simpson, and Miss Simpson, I observed her at Warren Dupree. That was honestly probably one of the most eye-opening schools I've ever been to, an eye-opening experience. The grow that I would have for Miss Simpson would be to not let the students just go in and out of the room. I did notice a lot of the students had to go to the bathroom quite frequently, and even if there wasn't a pass available, she would say, okay, well, hurry quickly, come back quick. I don't think so, because that creates the students, 1, they're not doing their work, and 2, you're showing them, hey, well, as long as you hurry, you can come, then you can go. And 3, if they have, there would be 3 or 4 boys out at a time, and maybe they're in the bathroom playing and they're gone for 5-10 minutes, and then you have to get up from your class and stop class time to go check on them. And I thought that was I thought there could have been a better system. Okay, only 1 at a time go. If there's no pass, then the answer is no. I thought that would have been a better approach to it instead of just going, okay, well, hurry quickly. My grow for her would be, I liked how she went about her teaching approach. When she was talking to the students about the prompt that they would have to do, she turned around and she was writing it. So her back was to the children, but she was writing it. So as she was writing it, she was also verbally speaking. So the students may not have been seeing her speaking, but they could hear her. They could see it on the board as well. Then when she was done, she turned around and faced the students, looked them in the eyes, and read the prompt again. So she stated the prompt 3 different times. When she wrote it, when she spoke it, and then again when she looked at them and spoke. So I like that approach because she looked at each of the students and made it clear what she expected from them, what she wanted, and what the prompt was. So I thought that was pretty awesome. My next school was, my next class was 4th grade with Miss Harris, also at Warren Dupree. She says hi, by the way, because you were her teacher. And Miss Harris was awesome. I don't believe I've ever observed in a 4th grade classroom, so that was really different for me. She had a very well control over the class. I did notice, for the classroom, it was kind of small, but she can't help that. It was kind of bare. There was posters on the wall, but there wasn't a lot of anything else, really. Which, there wasn't a lot of room for anything else. So I completely understand that. The thing that I would have to say is my grow would be to watch the students, because I was sitting at a round table, and on that round table was a bucket for the disciplinary papers, and she had boys and girls, and they were color-coded, and you had clips. Well, sometimes when she wasn't looking, when they were supposed to clip down, they wouldn't clip down, and I didn't know if I should say anything, so I told her at the end, but some of them, they would just kind of barely move the clip, so it kind of looked like they were on a better level than what they were originally on. So my thing would be to try to maybe hang those up, and then you can actually see, because when they're folded like that, it's kind of difficult to go, and at the end of the day, you're so busy, you're not going to remember who was supposed to do what. So I would just say, just keep a better eye on that. My glow for her would be, I really liked how she let the students read aloud, and they read as a class, which I really like that. I don't like when teachers say, okay, read to yourselves, because 9 times out of 10, the student's not going to read to themselves. I know, because I was that student. Because if you can't concentrate when you're in class, you're not going to be able to concentrate when you're reading to yourself. So I really appreciated how she said, okay, we're going to read as a group. She called on students to take turns reading. She called on students to say, okay, what do we review? After every single page, they reviewed what happened on that page. And I like that, because if you weren't paying attention, or if it wasn't making sense, you went over the review and you understood it. So I thought that was really awesome. My next school is Bald Knob, and it's Miss Roberts' special resource class. When I walked in, there was only 4 students, so I kind of liked that. It was small, so she could actually pertain to each student. My grow for her, there was one boy that kind of kept getting ahead of the other students, but every time he was trying to get ahead, he was wrong in his answers. And so she would have to kind of backtrack and go over it. And if she would have just said, okay, stop what you're doing, don't even worry about going ahead, let's move together instead of you going ahead, then that would have left out that whole extra step of having to backtrack and go, okay, you were wrong, this is how, well, not you were wrong, but this is how we can correct this, and, and that way she's not pulling attention from the other 3 students. My grow for her was, she kind of let, when I came in, they were working on their math, and it was called Math Minute, and she kind of let the students really teach that, which I thought was awesome. Each student took turns. I don't know if it was weekly or if it was daily, but they did take turns doing the Math Minute, and they had a sheet they were supposed to take home the previous day and fill out. And they came back to school, and then one boy, when I was there, was teaching, and he would go over the problem, he'd go over the answer, he'd go over how to get the answer, they had a projector, and he would physically show you, okay, well, here's 1, 2, 3 blocks, okay, here's, when we subtract, let's X out those blocks, this is what we're left with. And so I like that, because he really did show exactly what you were supposed to do and how you got that answer. And if he ever got that wrong, Miss Roberts was there to say, let's go back and let's do that as a class. And so I liked how she kind of let them take the lead in a little way, and the students, because they're students, they might better absorb something such as the math, because he might have explained it in a simpler way than Miss Roberts would have. But she did instruct as well, and whenever that was over with, they went and did the fractions, and she was the sole instructor. So I did like how she approached that. My next observation was the 5th grade Gifted and Talented with Miss Goodwin. This is also in Bald Knob Elementary. The title of the school is H.L. Loombar. It's named after a gentleman who founded the school. So that's the original name of the school.